Welcome to Talk to Molly. We're going to trigger some people again tonight, so let's get into it. I am going to talk about something that the left is going to call me racist and the right is going to call me a libtard. So I fall somewhere in the radical center where I love to be, in the radical center. I want to talk about immigration. I have a really interesting relationship with immigration because I married a man who came here undocumented. And so already the right, I'm sure, is rolling their eyes and calling him a criminal in their head or out loud. And I also have people in my life that came here as unaccompanied minors. We all know that I have a child that I took guardianship of that came as an unaccompanied minor. And so all of that is informing some portion of my beliefs around immigration. And then also on top of that, I've worked in hospitality and I've worked in farming. And so I also understand labor. I understand what's necessary as far as labor. And so, first, I want to say that I believe in a secure border. A wall is not racist. A wall cannot be racist. It is just an inanimate object. It does not have any racism to it. And a wall on the border of a country is no different than the wall on the edge of your house. It is no different than the fences around my farm. My fences around my farm are not racist. I don't like my neighbors' cows less because they are Black Angus and I have Jerseys. That is not, it doesn't make any sense, right? The fences are to keep my cows in and keep my neighbor's cows out. And if we make some exchange of cows or agreement about cows, then they walk through the gate. It's not racist. It's just what it is. I also want to say that as long as we have a labor shortage, which we definitely have a labor shortage in this country, and we have a shortage of men that have been trained to do hard work in this country at this point, we have a weak workforce, we will always have people sneaking in to do the jobs. So what we need to do is secure the border. You want to know why? Because everyone that crosses the border is paying the cartel to cross. You think like, oh, it's a humanitarian crisis. You want to know what the humanitarian crisis is? The cartels taking money to the tune of $13, $15, $10,000 from each person that crosses. And if you cannot pay, then you're in indentured servitude until you can pay. But most people are borrowing money, paying, and then paying it back at a very high interest rate once they get here. So why don't we make a real visa, not a 9-month or a 10-month, these visas for people to work on farms, then they have to go back for 2 months and come back for 10 months, and or in hospitality it's 6 months and then go back for 6 months. Why don't we create a real visa like we have for people that have skills? So let's, and I say that in quotation marks because working hard on a farm, working hard in a slaughterhouse, working hard in a restaurant, in a hotel, these actually are skills that Americans have lost. So we do need to be able to have low skill, and again, I say that in quotation marks, visas that operate like skilled visas. So it's a 10-year visa. Here's my proposal. We secure the border and we do a 10-year visa that costs $10,000. So you know what we're doing? We're defunding the cartel. And then we're funding our government with that same money. And these people, they have to be employed, gainfully employed. If they're not employed for 3 or 6 months, then they have to go back. They have to pay taxes, applicable taxes, although I do think that income tax is theft and is illegal and was supposed to be temporary, but that's another point. So they pay taxes, and then they pay a stipend into Social Security, not the full amount because they're not going to collect Social Security. So we're going to do a $20 stipend per a pay period into Social Security. So they're supporting Social Security, they're supporting our elders, and they're paying taxes because they're in our country, using our roads, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But you know what that does? It takes billions with a B of dollars out of a dangerous cartel's pocket and it puts it into the government. And you want to know what happens when someone takes a flight from Oaxaca, from Mexico City, from Juarez to the city in which they plan on working, they don't get raped, they don't smuggle any drugs, and they don't get murdered, and they don't just disappear, and they don't die in the back of a semi of overheating. So for all the left that's saying it's a humanitarian crisis, well, yeah, it is a humanitarian crisis. And by us having labor and all of us eating food and doing things that are supporting this labor, we are all complicit with funding the cartels to billions of dollars, billions with a B. And for all of the Americans that are screaming, like, we don't need anybody, just close the border, blah, 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 blah. Like, actually, we do. Do you eat food? Do you eat cheap food here in America? Yeah, well, we need people to pick that cheap food. And so the reality is we need to come somewhere in the middle. And also by the left and the right being totally impotent to make any change. Do you want to know what the other humanitarian crisis that nobody's talking about is? The other humanitarian crisis is these people that are stuck here. They've been here for 10, 20, 15, 30 years, and they have children on this side of the border, and they have children on that side of the border, and they have grandchildren they've never seen because they can't leave their family here. They can't leave their income here to go there, and they are stuck. You know what? That level of pain and separation to fund our cheap labor is not fair. And so the left should actually want to make a change because that is actually a humanitarian crisis. People not ever seeing their grandchildren, people watching their father die on FaceTime, that's also a humanitarian crisis. So we need to stop fighting with each other. And nobody's going to love the plan on either side. Nobody's going to love everybody's plan, but we have to secure the border. We aren't a country without a border, so duh. And then we have to actually have a pathway for the labor that we need. We're literally like, oh, we want to shut off the faucet, except for that the need for the water is still there. And so then we're like, well, there's no water. What are we going to do? That doesn't work. So my plan for the border is secure the border, make this $10,000 work permit. You agree to have 10 years in this country, and then you can renew once for 10 years. You agree to never get American citizenship. Even if you marry an American, you are just agreeing to green card holder status. You're never going to be a voting American. People are going to say, well, that's not fair. Yeah, but guess what? The right and the left have to come together and agree, and there's going to have to be compromise. And then these people are free to go home for Christmas, for a quinceañera, for their daughter's graduation, for their father's death. They're free to go home. And this is a win-win-win for everybody. And the plan? It defunds the cartels, and that is the most important part. So that's my basic plan from the border. I've talked about it on Epoch Times. I've talked about it on Instagram. I've talked about it a lot. I write about it a lot. But I now want to talk about right now what's happening. Trump said he was going to deport the most violent criminals. And we all know that Obama deported more people than any president ever has. And he focused on criminals. And I'm not mad about that. That's a good idea. But I don't understand why all of a sudden Trump is raiding farms, is raiding the guy selling fruit on the corner. Like, that is actually not what most people are concerned about. And I'm sure that there's people that are on the far one side and say, anybody that's here undocumented or illegal, they need to be taken out, round them all up. You know what? Those people don't actually have a related relationship to labor in the sectors that rely on this labor. And then on the other side, there should be no borders. We should see there everybody. We're all God's people. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, but you enjoy the resources in which this country has, right? And so we don't actually have the resources to continue to get diluted and diluted and diluted. Then we become the countries that are similar to the countries in which people are coming from. So in order to maintain the way of life that we love, we do need to have there be some controls on this. But back to Trump and what's happening right now. We have lost 170,000 farms, 170,000 farms in the last 8 years. So my question is, it's obvious that there's an attack. Is this another attack? is deporting farm workers and labor for construction and labor for meat processing plants. And is this actually just another attack on our food system, another way to consolidate our food system into the hands of the very most wealthy and the elites? We need to save farms, small farms, medium farms, large farms, farms that are growing a diversity of food, farms that are growing a diversity of things, not just corn, soy, and cotton. We need to be not a net importer of food, but we need to be a net exporter of food. We need to have enough food for all of us here and then extra to export. And that's not where we're at right now because we're losing farms at a crazy rate. This is Farmageddon. This is an agrarian collapse. And there's so many reasons that this is happening. Property taxes and no good financial products for farmers and drought and the cost of inputs going up and up and up, but the commodities staying exactly the same. There's so many problems. I mean, I could give you a list of 50 problems with farming right now. And the problem is just getting worse. And we have less and less cows. We have less and less farms. We have less and less ability to feed ourselves. And now we are actively deporting people that are here undocumented working on farms. And I want to ask, is that the best use of our resources? And will this have more dairies, more meatpacking facilities, more small and medium and large scale farms that are feeding Americans go out of business? I think yes. So I think that we need to defund the cartels, create a visa system that works, and this will have both the left and the right get some of what they want. And I think that we need to learn to compromise. We live in a world where there is no compromise, and we all want security and safety. That's why we lock our doors in our house. And we all want food. And we all want to live in a world where we can afford to eat the food, and we want food that's grown close to us. So I think that all of this is possible if we could make some compromises. And my understanding is that we've had an all left Congress, all Democrat Congress, House, Senate, President, and Supreme Court, and we've had an all right Congress, Senate, President, and Supreme Court in my lifetime. And do you want to know something? Nothing has been done. Obama did the Dreamers, and now there's all these people in limbo. That was not good. It's just limbo for those people. And Trump offered something for the Dreamers, but it included funding for the wall, and Democrats poo-pooed it. And so Democrats have left all of these Dreamers in limbo because they were unwilling to fund the racist wall. You see how we're not actually trying to have a solution for the people that are caught in the middle? And so my idea, I think, is solid. Defund the cartels, secure the border, make a permit process that works. And I just want to say I forgot one really important factor. I believe that we should prioritize Mexico. People are going to say, well, she's prejudiced because her husband's Mexican. Yeah, I am. No, that's not it. If you live next door to somebody, you want their life to be good and secure because that makes your life good and secure. You are only as secure as your neighbors are, because if they get into trouble, you know where they're going to come? To your house. So my thing is, we need to support Mexico building a middle class first, and then Guatemala and Salvador, and then work our way down. But we should prioritize our closest neighbor. And I know people say a lot of other countries are our greatest ally, but I think we should have our greatest allies actually be our neighbors. And so my idea is that we prioritize Mexico with these permits, and we make America, North America, great again. And so that's my plan for the border. And let's stop Farmageddon. Let's stop destroying all the farms in the United States of America. So that's my rant tonight on immigration. Let's come to the middle, the radical center, and make a plan that works for both the industry of America, the food system, and the people that are caught in the middle.